Why should the government of Ghana website be hacked? Because the hacker can do it. Now, according to Deputy Minister of Communication Atu Sapong, government technicians are devising measures to restore the site. You recall in 2012, the Ministry of Justice and Attorney General's Department website was also hijacked by hackers sympathetic to Argentina, which had its military vessels, the Libertad, seized by a Ghanaian court. Let's have a conversation on this. I'm joined over the telephone by Albert Nchibwe-Siako, his founder and principal consultant for E-Crime Bureau. Albert.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning to you. Are you surprised this is happening again?
Not at all. There is no surprise in this, especially based on our assessment of our cybersecurity threat landscape in Ghana. Look, before I explain further, I wish to say that hacking in the world of technology is an existential threat. In the world of technology, you can't have that 100% security because, we develop a technology, new systems come up, and certainly there are certain weaknesses that comes up. So what hackers basically do is to exploit those weaknesses in the underlying technology infrastructure that makes up a website. And, these things do happen. We have, instances where sites in the US have been hacked, sites in the UK. So it happens across the globe. However, I am particularly worried about the situation in the country. I wish to say that as a country, our cybersecurity awareness, our cybersecurity investment is very, very low. The rate at which technology is being, implemented, being developed in Ghana is not matched by the way that we protect our infrastructure. Those things happen, and I have said earlier that hacking is an existential threat in the world of technology. But the real question is, how do we stay ahead of this hacking? In other words, some of these criminals. That means something must be done, proactively to be able to protect our infrastructure. That's the point. Okay.
What is it that government must do? Because then looking back, it's not the first or second time this is happening. So then, how do you expect government to treat this?
Look, let me be frank here. As much as the government websites are under attack, I want to be very frank professionally. It is not only the government website which are vulnerable. We have websites belonging to financial institutions which are equally vulnerable, based on assessment that we do, as industry, practitioners. We have websites of media organizations which are equally vulnerable. It is a collective problem. It cuts across individual level, corporate level, and also at governmental level. But of course, we expect the government to lead the fight in addressing some of these concerns. Specifically speaking, well, in other words, I said these threats happen. They do. But how do we address the problem? The first thing we need to do is we need to be able to monitor, our systems, our website, to identify the threats, and then put up mitigation strategies. In other words, security, and especially cybersecurity, is always a work in progress. You don't just build a technology, a website, and leave it there to stay secure. So we need to proactively monitor this emerging threat, just target our systems, and then deploy appropriate countermeasures to address them. It's a tech-driven problem. In other words, cybercrime, cybersecurity is a technology-driven problem, and we expect to deploy technology to address some of it.
Albert, tell me something. You keep saying that from what you have observed, from what you have studied, from what you have monitored of the websites here in the country, how would you rate the security of the government of Ghana website?
Well, it's not good. I think the government everybody will admit it's not something that it can even be done by outside. There are basic tests that you can do to, validate and rank it. I think it's average. I would say it's average, absolutely. And I think every industry player, will say the same thing. It's not highly secure because some of the technologies that they use, and as I said, it's a cybersecurity, culture that cuts across, every domain, not just government alone.
I see. Now let's talk about the crime itself. The fact that websites are being hacked in this country, there's very little to be done because then it is the internet, it is technology. Here in Ghana, when it comes to dealing with this crime, what can we do, especially in this case?
All right, okay. Let me make also some points very clear. Cyber criminal activities in Ghana in particular, and also the sub-region in general, we're talking of, ECOWAS, is evolving. Those days we used to have the 419 schemes, the Yahoo thing, and then the Sakawas. But now we're seeing more of development of sophisticated malware programs, including malware targeted smartphones and other mobile devices and applications. In other words, the threat is evolving into more complex things. In terms of response as a crime, yes, we do have, for example, Electronic Transaction Act that identifies hacking as a criminal activity. But then, ask me how many cases have been successfully prosecuted under the law. It is not just making the law. It is making the law work. How do you make the law work? There are stakeholders within the criminal justice system. You have the investigators, you have the prosecutors, you have the judges who sit on the cases, and you even have the defense team. These stakeholders need to be equipped to be able to address the problem. Well, we've been working with CID, efforts are being made. At the government level, I think the National Communication Ministry is also working on the cybersecurity strategy to address some of these problems. But it has to be collective. In other words, the judge who is sitting on the case needs to understand the technicalities involved to be able to make judgments on the case that involve electronic evidence.
And do you find them understanding the technology?
Well, the fact is, as I'm saying, my reason is they don't. Well, but it's not to blame them. This is a new crime. Please, let me make this clear before we start, misunderstanding what I'm
very well.
Here.
Now, briefly on this one, we understand that bit, the fact that it is new. On this particular hacker, who did not just hack the government of Ghana, but some other government-related websites, what can the cybercrime unit of the police do in terms of trying to bring down this hacker?
Well, yes, efforts are being made, and even within the Ministry of Communication, NITA, as a technology agency of the government, has some sort of infrastructure to start investigating this case. But I must also say here clearly, the investigation of cybercrime is more complex. Somebody might be living in Afghanistan, but still, hack your system here in Ghana. It's not just as straightforward. It's quite complex. And all nations on the planet are struggling to deal with this issue. What I would advise my fellow Ghanaians, the government, private sector, is we need to be proactive. It's better you prevent it from happening than thinking of investigating them. It is much complex. We may never be able to trace whoever committed the act. And this is a fact.
I see. Thank you very much, Albert. We'll leave it here for now. I'm grateful. Albert Ntwibwe-Siako is founder and principal consultant with the E-Crime Bureau. Now, that's where we'll end the program today. But when I see you again on News Today later this afternoon, well, we'll talk about the 6 accomplices who went back to court. And I'm talking about supposed accomplices in the Nayeli cocaine scandal. Then we'll also talk about the medical doctor who is accused of having unnatural carnal knowledge of a 15-year-old minor. We'll get into that also, what happened in court today. I'll bring you up to speed when I see you on News Today. So I'll see you soon. Thank you very much for your company. Good morning.